Hello, my friends. Welcome to this live. Today, I want to talk to you about if you are a busy CEO or you're a busy executive, how do you get great sleep? Now, if you're like most people, you have probably listened to a podcast or seen something from one of the top influencers where you've got a list of 20, 30, or 40 different things that you could do to get better sleep. And while we all know that more sleep will lead to greater energy, will help us to lose body fat, and will increase our overall performance, you simply don't have time for another part time job just to get yourself to sleep. So, how do you do it when you are busy, when you are traveling the country, and when you have all of these demands? How do you get great sleep without adding this part time job? Well, we're going to use a premise called Gall's Law. Gall's Law states that a complex system created from the beginning will never be made to work. And all complex systems that do work were created from a simple solution. So today is about simplicity. And as we go into the simplicity of how you create great sleep, I want to tell you a story about one of my clients. Now, my client Gary came to me because he was overweight. He had about 25 or 30 pounds of body fat that he wanted to lose. He was in pain off and on and would throw his back out maybe once every month or two. He was stressed all the time and he just looked in the mirror and didn't like what he saw. He wasn't sleeping well. This was affecting his weight, his pain, and eventually his overall mental health. Now, the pain in the back, he believed, was coming just from his belly fat. He said to me, Steve, I've got super high standards in business, but my body doesn't represent those same standards. The bespoke three-piece suits that he was wearing were never fitting as well. Getting in and out of his over $90,000 car was embarrassing at best because of the extra weight that he was carrying and the fact that he could barely move well. His mental health was so poor that he was not happy. And when he looked in the mirror, he saw somebody he didn't recognize. And his wife mentioned later to him that the way he was acting was not the same person that she had married. So let's break down what was Gary doing wrong. First, he was not getting adequate protein because he was skipping too many meals. He was self proclaimed and self diagnosed hypoglycemic. Now, what that means is that he had high levels of energy at some times, and then the energy would dip significantly, making him feel like he needed to take a nap several times a day. He had a lot of external pressure, and I want to make sure that we're clear on this that he did not relent on that external pressure during the time that we were together. In fact, the pressure in his business and in his charitable responsibilities got even more and became worse over the time that we worked together. So the question was, how do we take his lifestyle and address the problems and make sure that we had simple solutions? Now let's go back to the first piece. He was skipping too many meals, and because his protein intake was not adequate, he was not able to get great sleep. You see, protein gives us the building blocks that help us to sleep well. More on that later. The second thing was he was not staying well hydrated. It's been documented that a small decrease in hydration can lead to massive decrease in our overall performance. Now, this is the Pareto principle at its best. If we're not hydrated, we will see a significant decrease in our cognitive performance and our overall physical performance as well. And finally, Gary was just not addressing how stress was affecting his sleep and the downward spiral that this was creating to his overall mental health. Specifically, he had no plan to address this. So, what was the end result? Constant brain fog, felt like a failure because he wasn't able to hold it all together, felt like a bad dad, bad husband, etc. And he knew that because he was in shape previously and had let things go, he was completely lost and he just frankly didn't know what the first step was and how to get started. So, what changed? Well, he reached out to me because he knew that unless he was able to make some changes, this was just not a sustainable lifestyle for him. His wife suggested it, but he felt like that his current life was not sustainable and he could no longer live in the psychological, mental, and physical pain of continuing on this path. So we had to take his hectic lifestyle and make a simple plan. Now, Gary had an advantage. As the owner of his company and the CEO, he had an assistant, and we brought her into the mix to help him when we created his SOPs that became the simple plan to improve his sleep and his overall health. The first thing we did was we created an SOP to make sure that he was getting appropriate protein relative to his goals. Now, I didn't just give him some sort of canned advice, calculate your protein at this level and do that thing. We had a specific SOP put together for him so that when his assistant was ordering lunch for the office, she ordered the lunch for Gary based on the SOP that we had put together. Why is that important? Well, getting adequate protein is the foundation for making sure that your hormones are in balance. Hormones are built from proteins. Also, neurotransmitters, the things that make our brain function and fire, are also built from proteins. If your body doesn't have appropriate nutrients, specifically proteins, then your hormones and your neurotransmitters are more likely to be out of balance and create a cascading effect throughout your entire body. Now, Gary had knew that he had been stronger and leaner before, and he wanted to build muscle. He wanted to also lose fat. So when I have somebody that needs to move in that direction, the first thing I attack is their protein intake. If you need to go on a weight loss plan, the last thing I want you to do is feel horrible and feel hungry. By addressing protein first, we're addressing the hunger problem before it becomes a problem. Now, we moved on to hydration. As part of our SOP, we wanted to make sure that Gary had proper hydration. So we didn't simply swap out sodas for mineral waters because, like many of you, he had meetings that would last several hours at a time, or he was going from one meeting to the next and couldn't be getting up to run to the restroom. So we had a hydration plan that was specific to his routine, his lifestyle, his day, and we addressed the mineral deficiencies that he was having that were not keeping him hydrated. You see, the last thing I do is give somebody a jug of water and say, carry this gallon around, just like the old school bodybuilders did, because that's going to work. It's simply not. In fact, if you get too much water and you don't have specific minerals and sometimes even the micro or trace minerals in your body, you will not be hydrated. You will just be having to go to the bathroom a lot, which makes your life more complicated and worse. Now, have you ever been that type of person where you decided, hey, I'm just going to start drinking more water, and you got rid of all of your favorite sodas, and then you just found yourself embarrassingly having to run to the bathroom more often than not, or you found yourself on the way home knowing how long it took to get from this gas station to the next because you needed to go use the restroom? If so, you're like Gary was at one point. No longer once we had his hydration strategy in place. Finally, supplementation. We started Gary on a supplementation plan that would get him to wind down, whether he was in his own bed or whether he was traveling across the country. Now, a lot of people have read about different supplements that you can take, and you've probably, as I said in the beginning, heard many podcasts about what's out there. So melatonin is an extremely common supplement that I find people jump to first and foremost. The problem with jumping to melatonin first is melatonin is acting like a hormone, or specifically is a hormone in the body. If you're hitting melatonin first and you haven't addressed some of these other issues, you may be causing a hormonal cascade issue throughout your body that you will have a difficult time unraveling unless you have a strategic plan. So I didn't recommend that Gary take melatonin first. I actually started him on GABA. What is GABA? GABA simply is a neurotransmitter, or more specifically, a neurotransmitter inhibitor. Basically, what it does when you take GABA, it tells the neurotransmitters to calm down, and you go from thinking and overthinking to not thinking. Your brain is able to calm down, and you are able to get to sleep faster. Now, getting to sleep, staying asleep, and waking rested are three different things that all require different strategies. So, with Gary, because he was so busy and we needed to calm his mind at night, we started with GABA. All of my other clients, we start with where they're at. So, please understand that if you want to get better sleep, the worst thing you can do is to take a strategy that someone tells you is the best strategy and just go there. You have to pause and say, what is it about my lifestyle? What is it about my nutrition? What is it about my stress levels that are causing me to not get the sleep that I need? Because Gary's stress was so high and he got to the point where he needed to be able to calm his mind, we started with GABA and layered other things as we went. So, what was the net positive? Well, Gary saw a significant reduction in his back pain. In fact, I would say it basically went away. And he went from having pain every month or every other month to a point where he can't remember the last time he's thrown his back out. He started dropping body fat without doing more exercise. You see, one of the things that happens when you address your sleep is you change two hormones primarily, your leptin and ghrelin. Think of these two hormones as your body's ability to regulate hunger and satiety, or being satisfied. When your sleep is not regulated well, leptin and ghrelin go out and you feel more hungry and less satisfied. When the sleep is improved, your hunger and satiety gets into check. So, because of that, he developed more steady energy. This also significantly improved his mental health. In fact, he came to me one day and said, "You saved my life." And we won't get too deep into the story mentally or emotionally where he was at when he came to me and some things that he had shared with me later. But suffice it to say that he worked his way back to being the type of man that he wanted to be. You see, we forget too often that the nutrients we put into our bodies become the cells and the neurotransmitters that communicate between our brain and our body and allow us to get the rest that we need. Now, after a few months of working together, his wife showed up at my office and said, "Thank you. I can't thank you enough. You have brought my husband back to me." Now, where do we go from here? The best way to figure out how you create your own bespoke strategy for sleep and for your overall health is to schedule a call. Now, let me explain a little bit about what I do. My bespoke coaching is really designed as you go. Now, I know many of you have purchased programs, and maybe you've even purchased equipment that had programs tied to them. So, if you've ever gone out and purchased a suit, we're going to use this analogy. So, think about that when you go out and purchase a suit, you have three options. The first option is off the rack, the second option is made to measure, and the third is bespoke. Off the rack suits, you hope it's close to what you are sized at, and you might be able to alter it to fit you a little bit better. Made to measure is where you take several measurements, you send it off to the tailor, and they make it and send it to you with some customization, but not much. Bespoke is where everything is tailored specifically to your body, the slope of your shoulders, the width of your collarbones, your posture, your waistline, your inseam on the left and the right. Bespoke suits are tailored to fit your body and no one else's. Now, I offer bespoke health and fitness performance coaching and consulting for busy executives to help them to drop body fat, develop a lean athletic physique that they want to develop without giving up the foods that they love. So if today's topic resonated with you, please reach out so we can schedule a strategy call and see if we would be a good fit to work together. So what's in a strategy call? Well, let's break it down. The strategy call essentially has two end results. The worst case scenario is that you and I spend 30 to 45 minutes together, and you leave there saying, I spent 30 to 45 minutes with an expert in the field, and you understand better what your next best step is so that you can get away from feeling stuck. The best case scenario is we come to find out that the consulting program and the bespoke coaching that I do works for you, and you can start to see the same results in a few months that Gary was seeing. I want to thank you for taking some time to join me today on the live, and I would be more than honored to sit down and have a consulting conversation with you to see if the strategy that we can put together is going to be the right thing for you. Have a great day.